The day I married Alexander Blackwell, the CEO of Blackwell Enterprises, was supposed to be the beginning of a new chapter, one full of excitement, love, and promises. We met under the most unlikely circumstances, my father's business struggling, and Alexander, the ruthless heir to one of the most powerful empires in the city, swooping in to offer a solution. My father's debts would be erased, but in return, I would be his wife. I was naive, believing that somewhere underneath his cold exterior, there might be room for love. But from the moment I walked down the aisle, I realized the harsh truth. This marriage wasn't about love. It was about power. And I wasn't the one in control. For the first few months, I clung to the hope that things would change, that somehow in the intimacy of marriage, Alexander would see me as more than just a pawn in his chess game. But that hope quickly faded. He was indifferent to me, dismissive of my feelings, and critical of everything I did. When he told me I was ugly and that he didn't need a wife like me, it shattered something deep inside. Yet the worst part wasn't his cruelty, it was his betrayal. He cheated on me, and when I confronted him, his only response was a cold, apathetic shrug. "You can't expect me to stay faithful to someone like you," he sneered. "You're nothing more than an accessory." That day I realized I was nothing to him, just a woman to fill a role he had no interest in. Still, I stayed. Not because I loved him. No, I had long since stopped believing in that, but because I had nothing else. No friends, no family I could rely on, and a marriage that had bound me in its web of lies. Time passed and I began to withdraw into myself. I had never felt more invisible. Alexander's business flourished, and he continued his affairs without a care in the world. I was stuck in the mansion, isolated, a shadow of who I once was. But something inside me finally snapped. One evening, as I sat alone in my room, I looked into the mirror and saw a reflection of someone I didn't recognize. My skin was pale, my eyes hollow from sleepless nights, and my posture defeated. I had let this man, this monster, destroy me, piece by piece. But no more. It was time to reclaim myself, to become the woman I was meant to be. Not for him, but for me. I started small. I hired a personal trainer and a nutritionist determined to take control of my body. I threw away the frumpy, unflattering clothes I'd worn out of habit and began to dress with purpose. I bought makeup, learned how to apply it, and practiced smiling in the mirror. Slowly, I began to see the change. Not just in my appearance, but in my mind. I was no longer the scared, insignificant woman I had been when I first walked into this marriage. I was reclaiming my confidence. The transformation wasn't just physical. I started reading, learning, expanding my mind, and taking pride in my intellect. I realized that I had so much more to offer than just being the wife of a man who didn't value me. I began to see the potential within myself. A woman with dreams and ambitions beyond the walls of this mansion. I wasn't the same woman anymore, the one who had let Alexander's cruelty define her. I had become someone stronger, someone who would no longer tolerate being invisible. I was finally ready to stand up for myself and to show Alexander what he had missed. Months passed, and the woman who once felt like a ghost in her own life had completely transformed. The changes weren't just physical, though they were striking. I had shed the weight of my past, both emotionally and physically. My body was toned, my skin radiant, and my eyes sparkled with a newfound confidence. One night, after a particularly grueling workout session, I stood before the mirror, surveying the woman who now looked back at me. The transformation was beyond what I had imagined, but it wasn't just my appearance that had changed. It was everything about me. The girl who had once been afraid to speak up now walked through life with her head held high. The woman who had been emotionally hollow was now full of life, purpose, and strength. It was around this time that Alexander began to take notice. He had always been cold and distant, but now there was something different in the way he looked at me. I could feel his eyes lingering, not with the judgmental disdain that used to define our interactions, but with something else, something I couldn't quite place. One evening, he came home late, his briefcase in hand, his tie loosened. As usual, he barely acknowledged my presence, but tonight was different. Tonight, I wasn't the same timid woman who had cowered under his harsh words. I was different. As I stood in the doorway, dressed in an elegant outfit that showcased my transformation, I saw the shift in his eyes. "Where are you going?" he asked, his tone casual, but there was an underlying curiosity in his voice. I smiled, a smile that was no longer forced or filled with insecurity. "Out," I replied. "I have a life beyond this house now." He frowned, clearly thrown off by my confidence. "You're not going anywhere," he snapped, his hand grabbing my wrist as I turned to leave. I didn't flinch. I pulled my wrist out of his grasp and looked him square in the eye. "Watch me," I said before turning and walking out of the room, leaving him stunned. The next few days were strange. Alexander, who had always ignored me, now sought my attention. He would find reasons to talk to me, to ask me about my day, to comment on my appearance. But it wasn't the respectful attention a husband should give his wife. It was the attention of a man who realized he had made a grave mistake. He had underestimated me, and now he wanted me. I could feel his desperation growing. He would watch me as I moved through the house, his eyes lingering a little too long, his voice betraying an uncharacteristic edge of emotion. I knew what he was doing. He was trying to win me back, to make me fall for him again. But I was no longer that woman. I had rebuilt myself from the ground up, and I had learned the most important lesson of all. I didn't need his approval to feel whole. But as much as I had changed, so had Alexander. I could see the cracks in his facade. The man who had once been so sure of himself was now unsteady, unsure, and it made me wonder, was he finally realizing what he had lost? Or was this just a fleeting phase, a desperate attempt to reclaim the power he had once held over me? One evening, as I stood in front of the mirror once again, applying my makeup, I heard his footsteps behind me. Without looking at him, I spoke. "What do you want, Alexander?" His voice was low, almost hesitant. I made a mistake." I turned, facing him for the first time without fear, without the shame I once carried. "You've made many, Alexander, but this one is yours to live with." He stepped forward, his eyes intense. "I never should have treated you the way I did. I see you now, and I want you, not just as my wife, but as the woman you've become." I stared at him for a long moment, letting his words hang in the air. The man who had once called me ugly, the man who had humiliated me, was now begging for a chance. But I wasn't sure if I wanted to give it to him. Not for the sake of the marriage, not for the sake of him, but for myself. I had a decision to make. The power had shifted. No longer was I the woman trapped in a loveless marriage, seeking validation from a man who would never give it. Now, Alexander was the one who sought my approval, the one who needed my attention. But I had learned a valuable lesson over the past year. I had learned that I didn't need him to define me. I didn't need him to validate my worth. I had become whole on my own, and now the question wasn't whether I could forgive him. It was whether I could love him again, whether I could open myself up to him after everything he had put me through. The answer was unclear, but one thing was certain. I wasn't the same woman I had been when I first walked down the aisle. I was stronger, more confident, and no longer afraid to choose my own path. If you'd like further development of this story with additional chapters, plot twists, and deeper emotional moments, feel free to let me know. Alexander's attempt to reclaim my attention leaves me conflicted. While I feel a sense of power in knowing how far I've come, I also begin to confront the raw emotions I've been hiding. The hurt, the betrayal, and the anger that he caused come flooding back in waves. This chapter explores my journey toward reclaiming my emotional independence, deciding whether or not I can truly forgive him, and if I should even try. As Alexander tries to prove he's a changed man, he makes grand gestures of love. But I remain skeptical. I feel a sense of liberation as I learn to trust myself, my worth, and my strength. Meanwhile, Alexander struggles to understand that it's not just about winning me back. It's about changing the foundation of our marriage. I begin taking charge of my own destiny outside of Alexander's shadow. I start making decisions that affect my future. I begin focusing on my own career and ambitions, using the power of my transformation to make my own mark in the world. Alexander's sudden neediness and obsession with my independence only makes me more determined to live for myself. Alexander becomes increasingly uncomfortable with my newfound sense of independence. He's always been the one to call the shots, but now the roles are shifting. I find strength in my own career path, gaining recognition from others and growing in ways I never thought possible. I also begin to make new connections and rekindle old friendships, reminding myself that I am more than just a wife or an object of. As I move forward, I start to face the ghosts of my past, both my family's struggles and Alexander's betrayal. I reconnect with my roots, seeking closure with my parents, and finally letting go of old resentments. This chapter reflects on how the trauma of my past shaped the woman I became and how Alexander's actions played into those insecurities. During this time, Alexander tries to make amends for his past behavior, seeking to understand the depths of the pain he caused me. He starts revealing his own vulnerabilities, and I realize that he, too, is battling his own demons. While I begin to see a softer side of him, I still struggle with whether I can truly trust him again. A pivotal moment occurs when I'm forced to confront the choice between holding on to the past or stepping into the future. Alexander makes a major sacrifice, showing genuine remorse for how he treated me. He offers to let me go if that's what I truly want, but in doing so, he's letting go of the only thing he's ever cared about, his empire. This chapter explores the tension between freedom and attachment. While I've gained so much in my personal transformation, I'm torn between maintaining the newfound freedom I've fought for and the possibility of rebuilding a life with Alexander, this time on my own terms. After months of distance, Alexander approaches me with an unexpected proposition. A new kind of marriage, one based on mutual respect, where both of us have equal footing. He suggests a partnership, one where we both get to pursue our dreams, and he acknowledges my worth as more than just a wife. This new agreement shakes me to my core, and I wrestle with the implications of his words. The chapter details our negotiation and the push-pull dynamics of love, power, and respect. I begin to understand that, while Alexander's intentions are sincere, my emotional wounds are still raw, and I'm unsure if I can open myself up to him completely again. I seek therapy, both for my personal healing and for any potential reconciliation with Alexander. This chapter dives into the difficult and often painful process of emotional recovery. With the help of a counselor, I start working through my issues, learning to forgive myself and Alexander, and figuring out what I truly want in life. As I continue this healing process, I realize how deeply I've been affected by years of neglect and emotional abuse. I start seeing the patterns in my relationship with Alexander that made me feel small and unimportant. This chapter highlights the importance of self-care, emotional resilience, and setting healthy boundaries. After months of emotional work, I'm ready to make a decision. I meet with Alexander to discuss the future of our marriage, no longer feeling the need to seek validation from him or anyone else. I've found my voice, and I no longer want to hide from the truth of who I am. In this chapter, we talk openly about our desires, fears, and the kind of partnership we both want. I make it clear that if we are to continue this marriage, it will be on equal ground, with mutual respect, trust, and open communication. I also let him know that I need time and space to fully make this decision, and I will not rush into any decisions out of pressure. In the face of a major business crisis, Alexander turns to me for help. For the first time, he acknowledges my intelligence and my value as a partner in both life and business. As I work alongside him, the dynamic between us shifts. We begin to understand each other on a deeper level, and I see the man I married in a new light. However, this test also serves as a reminder of how much we still need to heal individually and together. The chapter ends with a cliffhanger. A crucial business deal goes wrong, and Alexander is left devastated. I face a moral dilemma. Do I help him, or do I walk away and continue my own path? As the business crisis unfolds, I make a bold move to help Alexander recover. I use my newfound position and influence to step into the business world with him, showing him that I am capable of contributing more than just emotional support. This chapter explores our working relationship and how we begin to rebuild trust, not just in our marriage, but in each other's abilities. Despite the progress, we face tensions from outside forces, business rivals, family pressures, and lingering doubts about whether we are truly suited for each other. But as we tackle these challenges together, we both start realizing that our bond is not just about overcoming obstacles, but about rebuilding from the inside out. In the final chapter, Alexander and I reach a new understanding of what love means in the context of our relationship. We've both changed and grown, and now it's time to embrace a love that is both powerful and healthy. The chapter culminates in a beautiful, intimate moment where Alexander, with newfound respect and love, proposes a fresh start. As the dust settles from our business dealings, I start receiving unexpected revelations from people close to Alexander. The truth about his past comes to light in ways I wasn't prepared for. His own struggles with insecurity, family issues, and his reasons behind his cold behavior become more evident. This chapter explores how these revelations challenge my perceptions of him and whether I can truly forgive everything. Alexander begins to open up about his childhood trauma and the reasons behind his emotionally distant nature. This story brings us closer, but it also causes me to wrestle with the fact that his past mistakes shouldn't define who he is now. Or should they? The chapter explores forgiveness, empathy, and whether we are both capable of moving forward with a clean slate. The emotional weight of our past relationship continues to burden me. I begin questioning whether I'm staying with Alexander because of love or out of familiarity. Am I still holding on to the dream of what our marriage could have been, rather than what it actually is? This chapter dives into my internal struggle to break free from the chains of my own doubts and insecurities, as well as my growing need to reclaim my autonomy. I find myself withdrawing from Alexander emotionally, needing space to sort through my feelings. I start spending more time on my own, taking long walks, journaling, and finding new hobbies. Meanwhile, Alexander becomes desperate to reconnect with me and offers heartfelt apologies, but I'm torn. Am I strong enough to let go of the past for a fresh start, or am I forever bound to a version of him I can't undo? After weeks of emotional turmoil, I make a decision. I will no longer allow anyone, whether it's Alexander or anyone else, define my future. This chapter highlights my realization that my happiness and emotional health are entirely within my control. I begin to reclaim the power of choice, not just in my relationship with Alexander, but in every aspect of my life. I take a stand and tell Alexander I need time to think about whether I want to continue our marriage. This chapter explores my journey towards self-empowerment, as I realize that choosing myself might mean taking a step back from the marriage, but it also opens doors to the possibility of a healthier, more balanced relationship with him, or without him. As we continue to work together on rebuilding his company, Alexander makes an ultimate sacrifice. He offers to step down as CEO so I can take the lead on a project I've been passionate about. His gesture is both humbling and bewildering to me. The more time I spend in this new role, the more I question whether my future lies in this world, this business world I once rejected, or with Alexander. I'm forced to make a choice: stay with Alexander and possibly leave my own dreams behind, or forge my own path, free from the weight of his past. As I navigate this decision, Alexander shows his devotion in unexpected ways. Small acts of love that challenge me to reconsider the limits of forgiveness and transformation. As I grow closer to my own dreams, Alexander begins to understand that love isn't just about grand gestures or being the perfect partner. It's about showing up every day through the ups and downs. He starts proving his commitment through actions rather than words. And I realize that this might be the beginning of something real, not just for him, but for me as well. In this chapter, we come together in a quiet, intimate moment where we both express our fears about the future and what it means to be loved unconditionally. It's a vulnerable, tender scene where we both confess our insecurities and hopes. We acknowledge that we are imperfect, but our imperfections are what make us human and what might make us a stronger couple. In the final chapter, Alexander and I reach a new level of understanding. We redefine our love, not as something based on past mistakes, but as a mutual respect and trust that we've both earned through our growth. We come together, not because we need each other, but because we choose each other every day. We plan a new future together, but this time, we both have the space to pursue our individual goals without fear of losing ourselves in the process. The chapter ends with an emotional and symbolic act, a promise that we will move forward, hand in hand, ready to face whatever challenges come our way, but confident that we now have the foundation for a healthy, genuine relationship. As I continue to grow into my new self, I begin to see through the facade that Alexander has carefully built around himself. In this chapter, I uncover deeper truths about the emotional walls he has put up throughout our marriage. The truth isn't just about his past, but also about how he views relationships, trust, and vulnerability. I learned that his coldness wasn't only about me, but also about his fear of being hurt, a fear that has shaped his entire life. Alexander opens up about the lies he told himself about love, how he mistook control and dominance for affection. For the first time, we speak openly about the dynamics of our marriage and the emotional scars we both carry. This chapter reveals that healing isn't just about forgiveness, but also about understanding the hidden fears that led us both to where we are. After our intense heart-to-heart conversation, I begin to realize that I've been so focused on my own pain and transformation that I haven't fully acknowledged the changes in Alexander. He's evolving, too, in ways that are subtle yet significant. As we spend more time together, I witness his vulnerability, his struggles to unlearn old habits of control, and his desire to become the man I deserve. I also see that I've been holding on to anger as a way of protecting myself. In this chapter, I let go of some of that resentment, choosing to focus on the present and the future rather than holding him accountable for every past wrong. The true awakening comes when I realize that forgiveness isn't just for him, it's for me too. Letting go of my anger is an act of self-liberation, and it paves the way for something more genuine between us. As I take steps to rebuild trust with Alexander, a crisis at work forces us into a high-pressure situation. This chapter tests our ability to work together, facing the same obstacles but with a new understanding of each other's strengths and weaknesses. We rely on one another in ways we haven't before, and it's clear that we've both changed since the beginning of our marriage. However, the true test comes when an unexpected opportunity arises for me to advance in my career, putting me at a crossroads. Alexander's jealousy begins to surface as he grapples with my increasing independence. We have a heated argument where everything is laid bare, our insecurities, fears, and the challenges of redefining our marriage. The truth comes out in this moment, and we're forced to confront whether we're ready to let go of our old selves and fully embrace this new relationship. The stakes rise higher when Alexander is offered a lucrative opportunity that would further his career, but requires him to sacrifice time and attention in our marriage. I'm torn between supporting his dreams and worrying that we're once again slipping into the same patterns of neglect. In this chapter, I face the harsh reality that love sometimes requires sacrifice, and sometimes it's the hardest thing to do. I'm faced with a choice. Do I allow him to pursue his goals, even at the expense of our relationship? Or do I push for balance and demand the attention we both need to heal? In the end, I decide to support his dreams, but I also make it clear that our marriage cannot be an afterthought. This chapter underscores the difficult choices we make when love is tested by the outside world, and the sacrifices that are sometimes necessary to keep love alive. After the tumult of the last few chapters, I realize that trust is something we must rebuild from the ground up. Alexander makes significant efforts to show me that he's no longer the man he was, and I begin to see a different side of him, one that is humble, willing to change, and dedicated to making our marriage work. Slowly, we start to find our way back to each other. In this chapter, we take steps to rebuild our trust, including setting boundaries and communicating openly. We agree that we will no longer let the past control our present. There's a growing sense of mutual respect and understanding, and we begin to explore the idea of intimacy again, this time in a way that feels safe, genuine, and true to both of us. The final chapter brings us full circle as Alexander and I take the time to create a new future for ourselves. It's no longer about the mistakes of the past, but about the present and the possibilities of what we can build together. We choose to embark on a new chapter of our lives, not out of obligation, but because we've both learned to love and respect each other in ways we never imagined possible. We reaffirm our commitment to one another. This time it's not about the shiny, glamorous aspects of marriage, but about real love. We embrace the quiet moments, the shared experiences, and the genuine affection that have blossomed between us. The final moments of the story are filled with hope, as we look forward to a life where we no longer need to fight against each other, but where we stand united after months of rebuilding and tentative progress. I'm forced to face a truth that I've avoided for far too long. Alexander's past mistakes are not just his to carry, they are ours together. In this chapter, we revisit the pivotal moments that brought us to the brink of collapse. Alexander must confront the consequences of his actions, not only for me, but for the life we've tried to build. A business rival emerges with evidence of Alexander's previous infidelity, and it becomes clear that some scars won't easily fade. We navigate the tension between Alexander's attempts to prove his loyalty and the betrayal that still lingers in my heart. This chapter is about the cost of mistakes and the long road of redemption that we both must walk together, even as old wounds are reopened. Just as we begin to make progress, my own insecurities resurface. The scars of being belittled and dismissed as ugly during our early marriage start to haunt me again. I realize that my glow-up wasn't just physical, it's emotional and mental as well. But with that change comes a new set of challenges. I struggle to trust myself and question whether I've truly healed or if I'm still living in the shadow of Alexander's past cruelty. This chapter explores the difficulty of loving oneself after years of being told you're not enough. I find myself pushing away Alexander, even though I can see the effort he's putting in. It becomes clear that the walls I built to protect myself also block the love and connection that I need. In the end, I begin to tear down these walls, but it's a slow, painful process. As my relationship with Alexander fluctuates between moments of intimacy and painful distance, I take a deeper look at who I am outside of our marriage. I find myself reconnecting with old friends, rediscovering hobbies I left behind, and cultivating an independence I had forgotten existed. This chapter is about finding myself again in the midst of trying to find my place in a relationship that constantly tests my boundaries. Alexander, on the other hand, is faced with a dilemma at work. His responsibilities as CEO continue to take a toll on his personal life, and he's forced to make a decision about where his priorities lie. He begins to see that his ambition and drive have led him to neglect the very thing he's fighting to protect: our marriage. Together, we work through the tension of balancing career ambitions with the needs of our relationship. Our marriage has become a series of cycles, moments of progress followed by setbacks. Just when I think we've made a breakthrough, something from the past resurfaces, threatening to undo all the healing we've done. In this chapter, we face a critical point. Do we continue to let the past dictate our future, or do we break the cycle once and for all? In a moment of clarity, I realize that healing isn't linear, and neither is love. There will be moments when we stumble, but we don't have to let those moments define us. I challenge Alexander to break the cycle of emotional neglect and to take real steps toward becoming a partner who is present and vulnerable. This chapter is about confronting old patterns and choosing to rewrite our narrative. As Alexander continues to prove his commitment to change, I begin to see him in a new light. But it's not enough to simply say the words. Trust is rebuilt through consistent actions. In this chapter, we redefine trust in our relationship, moving beyond blind faith into something deeper and more tangible. We set new boundaries, communicate more openly, and begin to share our deepest fears and desires. It's a challenging but transformative process that allows us to form a bond based on mutual respect and understanding. We're no longer just trying to survive our marriage. We're building a future where trust is the foundation, not a fragile illusion. Our progress is tested when we face a major decision. Alexander is presented with an offer to expand his company internationally, but it would require him to move overseas for several years. This opportunity could secure his legacy, but it also threatens to pull us apart once again. In this chapter, we must face the harsh reality that our growth together is still fragile, and we may have to choose between career success and the love we fought for. The decision forces us to confront the biggest test of our relationship, whether we can continue to grow together despite external pressures, or whether we'll be forced to choose separate paths. As we discuss the potential move, the cracks in our marriage reappear, but so does our determination to make it work. This chapter is about navigating the final test of our commitment and whether love can withstand the weight of ambition. After weeks of intense deliberation, Alexander makes the bold decision to turn down the international offer and focus on building his company at home, with me by his side. It's a powerful moment of realization. He has finally chosen us over his career, just as I've chosen myself over the past pain. This chapter marks the beginning of a new chapter in our lives, one where we prioritize each other, our future, and the balance between love and ambition. We embark on a journey of co-creating a life together where neither of us is sacrificed for the other's success. This chapter is filled with hope, new beginnings, and a renewed sense of purpose as we learn to trust ourselves, each other, and the world we're building together. It's a promise that we will continue to grow, both individually and as partners, and that no challenge is too big for us to overcome. As we continue to rebuild our lives together, we're faced with one final, difficult choice. Alexander proposes a new way of life for us both, a plan that would allow us to travel the world, explore new ventures, and create something lasting together. But this decision isn't just about moving forward. It's about choosing each other every day, no matter the obstacles. In this chapter, we both face the ultimate test, choosing to put the past behind us and embracing the uncertain future ahead. It's a choice that requires trust, sacrifice, and the willingness to grow beyond who we were when we first met. We don't have all the answers, but we know that whatever we face, we will face it together. This chapter ends with a vow, not just of love, but of commitment to building a life where we can both thrive side by side. The story ends with us back where we started, but with a vastly different perspective. We have both changed, grown, and learned from each other's mistakes. Our love, though tested, is stronger than ever. In this final chapter, we reflect on our journey, the struggles, the breakthroughs, and the beautiful moments of growth that have brought us to this place. The narrative comes full circle as we embrace the future with open hearts. It's not a perfect love story, but it's real, raw, and deeply rooted in mutual respect and understanding. We step into the future hand in hand, knowing that while the road ahead won't always be easy, it will always be worth it. Even as Alexander and I have started to rebuild our relationship, there's an unspoken fear that lingers between us, the fear of failure, the fear of not being enough. This chapter explores the silent tension that still exists, despite all the progress we've made. Alexander's professional success continues to grow, but there's an underlying concern that his past mistakes will come back to haunt us. Meanwhile, I struggle with the pressure of meeting the expectations I've set for myself in this new version of who I've become. In this chapter, we face the uncomfortable truth that even with all our efforts, there are parts of us that remain fragile. Alexander's desire to prove his worth and my own insecurities about being good enough for him create new tensions that neither of us anticipated. In the end, we decide to confront our fears head-on by having an honest conversation about our anxieties. It's a pivotal moment in which we finally acknowledge the weight of unspoken expectations and the pressure of proving ourselves to each other. Just when we think we've begun to leave the past behind us, it comes rushing back with a vengeance. An unexpected encounter with one of Alexander's old lovers forces us both to revisit the trauma of his infidelity. In this chapter, I find myself at the crossroads between the woman I used to be, the one filled with insecurity, and the woman I've become, who is strong, confident, and no longer willing to tolerate disrespect. Alexander is visibly shaken by the encounter, and I can see the guilt in his eyes as he attempts to reassure me. But the damage is done. I'm confronted with a choice: to let this moment define me or to rise above it and prove to myself that I'm no longer the woman who would silently accept betrayal. This chapter focuses on my internal battle as I refuse to let the past dictate who I am today. I reclaim my power and confront Alexander, forcing us both to acknowledge how far we've come and how far we still need to go. Though we've started to trust each other more, there's still a silent battle we both fight within ourselves. Alexander struggles with the need to be in control, and I continue to grapple with the idea of being truly vulnerable. In this chapter, the focus is on the emotional struggles we face when it comes to intimacy and true connection. I realize that while we've had moments of closeness, we still haven't fully let go of the emotional walls we built up during our darkest times. I try to let go of the need for constant validation from Alexander, and he attempts to relinquish control in our relationship. It's not easy, and there are setbacks, but it's also a breakthrough moment for us. We understand that true intimacy isn't just about the physical, it's about being open and present in each other's emotional worlds. We begin to navigate the silent battles that we both face, learning that healing isn't just about fixing the past, but about accepting our flaws and growing together. A major opportunity arises for Alexander to take his business international, and the decision once again puts our relationship at a crossroads. While I want to support his ambitions, I also realize that his career has often been at the expense of our time together. This chapter delves into the delicate balance between personal dreams and relationships and how much we're willing to sacrifice for the sake of love. We come to a crossroads. Will Alexander pursue his career at the expense of our marriage, or will he choose to find a way to balance his success with his personal life? I also find myself questioning whether I've been holding him back by asking him to choose me over his ambitions. This chapter is about testing the strength of our bond and how much we are willing to fight for one another amidst external pressures. In the end, Alexander makes a decision that surprises me. He chooses to scale back his international aspirations and instead focuses on growing his business locally. It's a turning point, as it shows me that he's committed to the partnership we've been rebuilding, not just for the sake of his career, but for the sake of us. As Alexander makes more efforts to include me in his world, I begin to understand the vulnerability that comes with truly opening your heart to someone. This chapter explores our emotional journey toward full transparency. I realize that I've been afraid of fully committing to Alexander, even though I've transformed physically and emotionally. I've been waiting for him to prove himself, but in reality, I need to prove to myself that I can let my guard down completely. This chapter focuses on the tender moments of our relationship, where we start to share our deepest, most intimate thoughts with each other. There are moments of joy, laughter, and even tears as we both discover the beauty of vulnerability. We begin to understand that love isn't just about the grand gestures. It's about the quiet moments where we're most honest with one another. It's a realization that helps me finally let go of the lingering doubts that have kept me from fully trusting in this relationship. The emotional tension we faced in the last few chapters culminates in a moment of true forgiveness. Alexander, realizing the depth of my pain, finally acknowledges the full extent of the harm he caused and asks for my forgiveness. Not just as his wife, but as the woman I've become. In this chapter, I am faced with the choice to forgive him fully, to let go of the past, and to embrace the freedom that forgiveness brings. As I forgive Alexander, I also realize that forgiveness isn't just about letting him off the hook. It's about freeing myself from the weight of past hurt. We both learn that holding on to anger only hinders our growth. This chapter is about emotional liberation as we finally let go of the guilt and resentment that has shadowed our marriage. It's the beginning of a new chapter for us, one where we choose love and growth over pain and resentment. In the final chapter of this set, Alexander and I take a significant step forward. We move into a new home together, one that represents the fresh start we both deserve. This chapter highlights the symbolic nature of our new beginning, leaving behind the ghosts of the past and stepping into a future where we are fully present for one another. We celebrate our love in a way we've never done before, with intimacy, trust, and mutual respect at the core of our relationship. It's a simple yet profound moment when we realize that, despite everything we've been through, we are still standing. We've grown, we've healed, and we've chosen each other every single day. This chapter marks the start of a new, more balanced and loving life together, one where we both have the freedom to be our true selves, with no fear of judgment or betrayal. Thanks for watching.